Yeah, I'm probably overdoing it. Hello friends! Today we have another overly ambitious TBR. If you're new here, my name is Kat and I have a problem. So I have a total of 16 books on my list this month, so I'm definitely not gonna read all of them, but I've divided them into categories. The first one is the books that are my priorities and that I need to get to for a specific reason, and overall I'm feeling rather confident that I could read them all. And then there's the second tier, which is like the hopefuls, the ones that I'm hoping to get to this month, but we will see, and if I don't, it's not the end of the world. So the first one on the list is A Time to Dance by Padma, Venkatraman. This is a book that I'm buddy reading with my friend Rochelle over at Good Morning Dreamer, and this is a recent purchase, so I received this a few days ago, and because I'm trying to read the books that I purchase as soon as possible after getting them, I want to prioritize this. This is the story of Veda, who is an award-winning dancer of Bharatanatyam, which is a classical Indian style of dance. Unfortunately, she gets into an accident which results in her leg being amputated, but despite this really harsh event in her life, she decides that she wants to keep dancing, and this is her fight to get back into dancing. I'm quite excited to get to this for the disability representation, but also because I used to practice classical Indian dance. It was a different genre called Odyssey, but it's a world that's rather familiar to me and that I just love. I think Indian classical dance is just absolutely gorgeous, so I was very excited to find a book related to this topic. Next, this is Parable of the Talents by Octavia Butler. It is the second part in the Earth-Sea duology. So I already read Parable of the Sower a few months back, and so this is the second part. I'm gonna be doing a buddy read of this as well with Ellen from the Ellen Made Book Club channel and with Chelsea from Libraries and Lattes. Next, this is kind of a modern classic at this point. This is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I want to get to this now because it's one of the books selected for Ellen's book club on the Ellen Made Book Club channel. I'm quite excited to be reading this and see what everybody else thought of it. It's a very well-loved book. Circe by Madeline Miller was my top book of the first half of the year, so I'm quite excited to get to this one as well. The next book on my share list is Empire of Imagination by Michael Witwer. I'm listening to that on audiobook and I already started. It is the biography of Gary Gygax, who is the creator of the Dungeons and Dragons franchise, and that sounds really cool. And the 4 books left in the kind of sure reads of this month are part of the Heartstopper series. So I read the first book in June and I was waiting for the other ones to reach me. They were on hold from the library, so those should be fairly quick to read and they're really fun. I've watched the TV show and really enjoyed it, and the first book was so cute. I really loved it as well, so I'm quite excited to see the rest of the series. If you're living under a rock and don't know what Heartstopper is about, it's the lovely relationship of Charlie and Nick, who are 2 high school boys who fall in love, and it's their adventures and the evolution of their relationship, and it's just absolutely adorable. Alright, now moving on into the hopefuls, so the second part of my TBR where I'm way less confident that I'm gonna get to those books, but I'm still gonna try. The first one is a rollover from July. I didn't get to this book. It's the first book in the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson, which is at this point also a modern classic of fantasy literature. I know what it's about and I don't know what it's about, weirdly, because I've watched some of Brandon Sanderson lectures on writing fantasy. I know elements of this, that it's a high story, that it's a master apprentice story, those kind of elements, but I haven't really read the details of the back cover and the summary of the book. So I'm weirdly approaching this book with like knowing some elements of what it's about, or mainly like how it's constructed, but not necessarily the details of the story. And yeah, I really want to get to it because I've heard only good things about it. Again, it's kind of a classic of fantasy literature, and I'm just enjoying hearing Brandon Sanderson talk about the craft of writing so much that I really want to get to his work as well. So it's a bit of a thick one though, and that's why I didn't manage to get to it in July. We'll see if I'm more successful in August. The next book on the list is My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. I was quite reluctant to put it on my list because it felt a bit of an unnecessary addition to a very already big list, and I'm trying to prioritize the buddy reads books that I've selected, the book clubs one, my most recent purchases, so there's already a lot I need to get to. So I was like, I shouldn't add this one, but the thing is, like, it keeps popping up. Mary from the Honey Reads channel talked about it and was also wanting to read it, I think, and she said something along the line of that's a book that will define your summer. And so if you've watched other recent videos of me, you know that I'm working to design my summer, and so that phrase really resonated with me, and I was just like, oh, sounds like the perfect book for the season. So I was kind of excited, but again, I was like, okay, I have so many other things, I don't need to read this right now. And then Ellen considered it for her TBR this month. It didn't make it on the list, so I was just like, too bad. Like, I would have picked it up if she had as well. But I was like, okay, that's it, that's fine. I'm not gonna add that to the list. And then it was the number one book in the New York Times list of like the best 100 books of the century or something like that. And I'm just like they're taunting me. I don't really care about best books of the centuries list and stuff like that, but it's just, again, it's the third time that this book has popped up, and so I'm just gonna take the hint and I'm just gonna put it on my list and hopefully try to read it. I can get it from the library, so we'll see if I manage to read it this month. Next is a book I started in July, but I'm only one chapter in, and it's non-fiction. It's quite dense, so it's on my hopefuls because I would want to make progress on it this month, but I don't think I will finish it anyway. And this is my research book for my novel. So if you've watched my TBR from last month, I had to read a book related to the novel that I'm writing currently. And so it's like a research book on the topic related to the book I'm writing. I'm keeping it very mysterious because I don't know how much I should share. And I think revealing the topic of the book would give away a lot about the novel I'm writing. So this is why. Then I would like to another recent audiobook purchase, which is Endless Terrors by KJ Sutton. It's the 5th book in the Fortuna Sworn series, which is an indie fantasy series where we're following Fortuna in this world where you have kind of all the magical creatures that you can think of. Like, she's a nightmare, which means that she can make you feel like you're living your worst fears, but you also have fays, werewolves, vampires, all that good stuff. It's quite fun. Next, I would like to get to Hello Beautiful by Arin Napolitano, which is one of my most recent purchases. I don't remember much about what it's about. I think the blurb reminded me very much of Little Women because I believe it's the story of 4 sisters. One is about to get married, I believe, but then we learn things about her betrothed and something like that. Very vague, but I think it was Arin from Arin Honey, who talked about it so beautifully and with such enthusiasm that I felt like I needed to read this book. Next is Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle Jensen. So I don't know much about this other than it's a North inspired fantasy, and when I mentioned this in my mid-year freakout talk about the books I'm most excited to get to, lots of people wanted me to read this. Like, people were super curious about what I would think about this book, so I think I should read it sooner than later. And again, I'm trying to get to the books I'm buying as soon as possible, so definitely on the list. Next is an audiobook that I purchased a few days ago, which is Crying in Mart by Michelle Zauner. It's her memoir about losing her mother and kind of finding refuge in a way in the food that she used to cook with her mom. And it's supposed to be very funny. I've heard only good things about it, and I think kind of that conjunction of humor and the dark topic of grief can be quite interesting and really intrigue me, so I'm looking forward to getting into this. And then the final book on my list is Out of Embers and Shadows by Shelby, which is one of the members of my writing groups, and so I'm very curious to pick her book up. She's an indie author, and through the group, like, we've been talking a little bit about her book. She's currently working on the second book in that series, and it just sounded so good and so interesting and so compelling that I'm just like, I really want to read it. And so also knowing the author is like a nice perk, because then I can have very interesting conversations with her about it, and I can see the process of the second book being written through that writing group that we have together. So I would love to get to it as well. So yeah, overall, just a way too ambitious TBR, especially because I'm going to be traveling for 10-ish days during August. So I'm not sure how much reading I'm going to be able to get to, but hopefully a good amount. And yeah, I'm very excited by this selection. I'd be very curious to know what you plan to read in August, and if you read any books on my list. If so, what did you think of it? Is there any of the hopefuls that I should bump into a priority reread? All of that, just let me know in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.